Hello and welcome to the STM channel. Welcome back if you're returning. If you're new, then welcome. On this channel we do a lot of fix and repair videos, some cleaning ASMR. We've got a little bit of everything to do with tools, so if you enjoy this content then please like, subscribe, and we'll get right into it. Today we're going to be replacing a hydraulic pump on a JCB Beaver hydraulic power pack. The first thing you want to do is drain the reservoir or the tank of the hydraulic fluid. You want to do this because, to be honest with you, I've spilt so much hydraulic fluid in my work area. It's quite embarrassing to say the least. So you want to do that first. There'll still be a lot of hydraulic fluid in the system, but you want to obviously give yourself the best chance. On these, the reservoir bolt is underneath the tank, so as you can see I've got this one up on bricks, which isn't ideal. I broke my ramp, but it is what it is. On some of the other ones you'll have the reservoir plug on the side, which is like 10 times easier to deal with. So first off, when you're doing this, as you can just see, I just popped off one of the radiator pipes that connects, that obviously draws fluid out from the tank into the radiator to cool down and then through the system. They'll have little calipers that you'll have to unscrew. I know you'll need a flathead. That's just good practice anyway to have one of these. It's a lot of finicky bits. You just want to undo that really, and then just sort of work it off slowly. Move it up and down. It should come loose. It's ribbed on the other side, so you might have to get a screwdriver behind it and try and pry it away. But one thing I will say is be careful, because you can split the pipes, and that is the last thing you want to do. I've done it before. Luckily I've got loads of parts, so if I do make mistakes like that, I can just swap it out. They're still quite difficult to get off though sometimes. As you can see, with the bottom one I was struggling for a good couple of minutes before she came off. Also, sorry if you can hear rain in the background. I live in the UK, so it rains all the time, and unfortunately today it's a very wet day. There's actually a thunderstorm coming in, so you might even hear some thunder at some points. So I do apologise for that. Hopefully I'll be able to clean the audio up a little bit so it isn't too bad. And you can hear people working in the background. And there's the thunder, right on cue. Right, back to the video. After you've got the bottom one off, you'll want to drain the fluid. Make sure you do that. You want a drip pan or something like that to just catch the fluid. It can be a pain. But after you've got those both off now, the next thing to do is to get this fixing loose. And as you can see, I was trying to figure out which way was left and right. With these, the bottom one will obviously be the right way, but the top one will be the opposite way, so you've got to be careful. Also be careful of your hands. I cut my hand open doing this in this video, because sometimes they're really tight, sometimes they're loose. It really just depends. Sometimes they can get jammed because of the dirt. Yeah, so just be careful. You want two adjustable spanners as well, because if you don't use two on the bottom one especially, you can warp the thread or the hydraulic pump, and they cost a load. So you just want to be careful when you do it. When I was about to move on to the top one, I realized that I'd been giving myself a handicap. So don't give yourself this handicap. What you want to do, especially if you've got one of these frames on, is take the front frame off and it's just 2 bolts, so it's real easy, and they're usually quite loose, so you can do it quite easily. I should have done that. I should have started with that, to be honest. But as you can see, it like sort of clicked after when I couldn't get to the bolt that I wanted to. You'll want a socket set as well if you're doing this. There's, for some reason, not for some reason, but a lot of the bolts are different sized. Sometimes it doesn't make no sense. You can have 2 bolts next to each other that are completely different sizes doing the same job, but it is what it is. These bolts can be a bit annoying to get out as well, so you'll have to wiggle it around a little bit. As I've said in other videos too, make sure you keep the bolts and make sure you keep all the spacers, because it is a nightmare trying to find replacements, especially when you don't know what size the bolts are. And the spacers, yeah, some of them are like specifically made, they're not all metal. On this one's got plastic ones between the two metal hinges, so, and I lost 2 of them, but luckily I had another 2 from another machine that I took apart recently, so it was blessed. But just be doubly careful. I use an ashtray to put my bolts in. You can use like a plastic container, anything really that you can maybe put to the side and label it. I've got about 100 different little plastic containers of bolts. Some of them I haven't labelled, some of them I have labelled, but they always come back in handy, especially if you lose something or you break something, you thread a bolt or something like that, then yeah, you can get around it. But you want to leave yourself in the best stead, give yourself the best chance. After you've got those bolts off, it should just wiggle off. And then if you've still got your lines connected, then you can just slide it down the lines, or if you can take the lines off if you want. These lines were pretty fresh, so I didn't need to. So usually if I don't need to take it off, then I won't, I'll just leave it. And then also if you do take it off, then that's another thing, there's going to be dripping hydraulic fluid. And yeah, ironically, hydraulic fluid is one of my least favourite things, but I fix hydraulic machinery, so it's a bit ironic. After I got the frame off, then it was try to get the top bolt off. As I said with the bottom one, if you can, get 2 spanners in there, but for some reason on the Beavers there's an Allen key bolt that goes down, so you can't actually get anything on the top one. So you just gotta be careful and just, yeah, hope and pray really that you don't warp the top. That being said, the top is a lot stronger than the pump, so you should be able to get away with it like quite easily. Be wary too, as when you take this off there will be hydraulic fluid, so if you can get something in there, I think I use like a blue roll or something just to put on there, just to stop it from dripping down whilst you're taking the pump out and changing it, then that will be blessed. Or if you've got like a drip pan or something, you can slap that in there too. Another good habit as well is to take pictures of which side is on where, especially with a connection like this, because both sides look almost identical. I done it by the thread on the top didn't go all the way down the pipe, whereas the one on the bottom did. But if you can take pictures, take as many pictures as you can, just so if you do get confused or your memory fails you or anything like that, then you can just get straight back to it. After you've got that undone, or you've got that unbolted should I say, next thing is to unbolt the pump from the tank. So this is just an Allen key. Just slap it in there. It should come off fairly easy. They're usually not tightened up too much, but also be careful because this is what I cut my hand doing on this next one, trying to get out. Yeah, not my finest moment, but you know how it gets. Get straight back to it. After that, it does come out pretty easily, and then it's just a matter of unscrewing them. After you do unscrew them as well, it will make it 10 times easier to get the top connection out of it. It's pretty much flush when you have it all bolted in, so be careful. Well, not so much be careful, but yeah, be aware. You just need to take the bolts out and then it will wiggle out. One thing to also be aware of is when you take this pump off, it will have hydraulic fluid in it. So if you've got a drip pan on hand, perfect. To be honest, you should be if you're this far into the video and you're actually trying to do this. So when you take it out, just slap it in there. Maybe spin the coupling, and it should, like, as you can see, there's just fluid going everywhere. Spin the coupling, get the rest of the fluid out just so you're not making a massive mess. As you can see, I made a massive mess. It's just, yeah, not my finest moment to say the least. And then after that's done, the pump should just slide out with relative ease. As you can see, I'm just spinning the coupling just to get the rest of the hydraulic fluid out of it so it doesn't spill everywhere. It's usually not a crazy amount that's in there, but there's like enough in there that it can get a bit messy. I mean, this whole job's messy to be honest, but you know. The next thing you want to do then is just to unbolt the mount. This is another socket jobby. They shouldn't be that tight in there, to be honest. I mean, if they are quite tight and you've got an impact on hand, then maybe use that to make your life a little bit easier. It's not necessary though. They should come off fairly easily. This one was covered in hydraulic fluid and dirt and dust and all sorts. So if you are doing this, then you can, well, what I done, I used engine degreaser. It's like it breaks up oils and different things. You usually use in engines, but it can be used on stuff like this. It's perfect for hydraulic oil. It breaks up the molecules. And then I just jet washed it. And here comes a little bit more thunder. If you hadn't noticed already, this is a voiceover. My audio on my camera is not playing nice, so I've had to do this. But today it's raining. As in the video, it was a very hot day and it was lovely outside. Right, back to the video. So as you can see, I cleaned it off a bit, just wiped it down. So although this video is about replacing a hydraulic pump, which I did do, what was actually the issue with this machine was the engine coupling sleeve. So the reason that the pump was so difficult to slide out was because the piece of plastic had worn, so it almost stuck into the cog. When I took it off, I then realized and was like, oh, perfect. So I did order another one, but I bought another pump anyway and had planned to do this video. So I thought I'd just carry on doing it, swap the pump, and then just go from there. As you can see as well, this is after I jet washed it, so it's nice and clean, looking fresh. I'd wiped down the whole system, cleaned up the all the hydraulic dirt and oil off of it. It's just a good habit to get into, to be honest. And then it's just a matter of reversing the steps. So put the bolts back in to the mount. I would suggest cleaning them off too. Some of mine were still filthy, and you don't want dirt to get into the thread, because then they'll either go in and jam, or it will unthread the whole. Well, there's a whole host of issues that were just going to cause you pain. And probably cost you money if you were to thread it into the tank. After you've got the mounts back on, now we can put the pump on. What I done was clean the pump right off, cleaned all the dirt and the hydraulic oil that was on it. So we're putting in a fresh pump. This one was for sale. Well, it would be posted for sale later on. So clean it all up, do some of the hard work now, and then it'll make life a lot easier later. Now when you put it back on, you want to put some of the Allen key bolts back in, but you don't want to tighten them up too far, because you do have to get the top connection back in, and it can be, well, it's impossible if you've done it up too tight, but it's something that you can feel about for. Once you have got that back in though, then you can slide the Allen keys in and the Allen key bolts back in, and so it can hold it in. Don't tighten them up yet, because you'll want to make sure that you get the top fixing back in, the top pipe, and tightened up before you actually tighten up the pump. You need your adjustable spanners back. This time it'll be the opposite ways. Well, it'll be the opposite ways again, but yeah. This is the next step, just reconnecting this all back in. As you can see, I was still trying to figure out what way it was going. You'd think after doing this hundreds of times that you get used to it, but apparently not. I would suggest doing the top one first, as you see me doing. It's the one that's a little bit more of a pain, so you want to get that one out of the way. Make sure that the thread's on straight, eye it up, keep checking it, because the last thing you want to do is thread it. This one especially, because you'll need to buy a whole new tank if you thread the top one, so be careful. I had to clean the grooves on mine. It was covered in dirt, so you might need to have a look at that before you slap it back in. After you got the top one, now for the bottom one. I'd suggest just screwing it up just with the single adjustable spanner, and then move on to having both of them. You just want to create a secure base so you don't end up breaking the pump, because as I said, they're quite expensive to find. Even if you buy them used, they're quite expensive. So just be careful with that. You want them to be tight but not over tightened, so you'll feel when the thread doesn't want to go anymore. Try not to push it past that. After you've got the top pipe on, then you can go ahead and then tighten up the Allen keys. They should be fairly easy to do. It shouldn't be difficult. And then just tighten them up to where they were tightened up before. Same thing with this, don't over tighten them, because you can snap the threads. And here comes the rain. How lovely. Hopefully it doesn't dampen the audio too much. That would be annoying. Before you move on as well, make sure everything's tight. These machines run at high pressures, so you want to make sure everything's tight, nothing's too loose. Next step, reconnecting the hoses back onto the radiator. This top one is easy. You literally just push it back on, pull the clip up. This one's easy. Pull the clip up, put it back up, and then just literally tighten it up again with a flat head. As you can see, I'm just cleaning it off a little bit. The next one, on the other hand, is a bit more of a pain. So one thing I would suggest, I should have said this earlier to be honest, is before you put the pump on, make sure you put the bottom one on first. You'll see in a minute how much I was struggling. And I did come up with a good way of doing it, but if you can save yourself some pain, then definitely put the bottom hose on first, and then life will be a lot easier. It's easy getting it onto the radiator, it's just a bit of a pain to get it back onto the pump because you can't really get that much purchase. As you'll see in a minute, I used my rag, put it underneath it and then pulled it up, which happily and luckily for me worked a treat, but it did stress me out. I had to cut like at least 5 minutes or 10 minutes out of this video of me just struggling, walking off, coming back, trying to figure out the best way to do it. And this is me getting the rag underneath, trying to come up with a good way of getting it on without breaking anything. Luckily, it actually was a very good idea. If you don't really mind the struggle, to be honest, you can do it this way. Or if you just forget, it's not the end of the world, there is ways around it. Just don't use anything metal on the hoses because it can break them. I've done that a few times as well. Now that's on, just like the top hose, you just want to tighten up the clamps and you're good to go. Same with this. To be honest, you can't really tighten these up too much because they'll just stop tightening at some point. But you can see that they're connected in and they're on tight. And then I'm just going around here making sure they're all tight. Because you never know if you might miss one. It's the last thing you want. Well done. You have completed taking the pump off, replacing it, putting it all back together. And if you followed the steps, then you should be here right now. The next thing to do is then refill the reservoir or the tank, whatever you want to call it, with hydraulic fluid. I didn't show the whole video because it's about 5 litres, so it was about 5–10 minutes it took me. And after you've done this, then she's ready to start again. If the engine is running, of course. I've got a little operational video at the end of this one so you can see it running with everything. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, comment and subscribe. If not, if you disliked it, then dislike. Please share it if there's anybody who would be interested in these sort of things. Thank you for joining me for this video and have a lovely day. Peace.